Awesome. Thanks, Brooke. Andre, it's so great to be here with you. I've been looking forward to this for a long time.
You as well. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, we don't have too long, so let's hop right into things. I'd love to know. So I got to confess first. So the cloud NFT you guys did is one of the only ones I still have left in my wallet after doing giveaways for Unmutable. I just couldn't part with it. So very good project.
Amazing. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah, they're a great group. Y'all should check them out. But anyway, let's jump into it. So you've had a pretty interesting musical career, or career in music, I should say. Can you tell folks just a little bit more about what Brooke teased and what led you to SoundMint?
Yeah, for sure. So if anybody's not aware, I'll explain my background. So I come originally from music. I started a music kind of like promotion brand, I guess you could say, into a record label over time. But I started that when I was 15 in high school. It started off as like a hobby, like most things, kind of that come to fruition into brands and companies. I guess they start as hobbies. I just treated it more as like a channel on YouTube that could promote and discover electronic artists. And then over the span of 10 years, you've amassed about 40 million total subscribers between all 8 channels that we started. We uploaded about, I think it's like over like 3,000 or 4,000 videos of different songs that we're promoting, and we've amassed, I think, like over 15 billion impressions. And I also started a record label off the back of that. And then, NFTs became very interesting, and, just kind of, my 2 colleagues, Paris and Brian, who founded the company with SoundMint with me, they presented this idea and I came on board and recently became the CEO of the company.
Yeah, it's hard to do any music discovery on YouTube without running into that Nations project at some point. I know Trap Nation was a big part of me sort of in my early EDM discovery. So thanks for your work on that. But I'm more interested now in what you're doing with SoundMint. Could you kind of break down in like simplest parts what you guys are doing and why?
Yeah, so SoundMint in its simplest form is a generative music NFT platform. Although we do visuals as well, but we like to be music forward. So that's been our messaging and our narrative so far as a brand. What we do is we find rising and top talent in Web3 music or just Web2 music as well. We work with them and pair them with visual artists to create generative audiovisual collections. And then to break that down, just like how Bored Ape and Cool Cat are created on the visual side, where individual layers of visual assets are created, we do the same exact thing on the music side. So instead of visual layers or stem layers, and they're all created in the same key and BPM, with that can overlap. And then we have some algorithms that help with mix and mastering on the exported collections that make them sound cohesive and consistent.
That's fascinating. Do you see this sort of generative side of music being something that grows a lot in the next few years, and that being like a major player in terms of what's putting out music?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah. One of the main reasons I joined SoundMint really was because it was a different offering to Web3 music than every other platform, every other project that was coming out. I thought it was very intriguing. And I think what it really started to struck me as, this could be something next level for the music industry, not just Web3, but also just the music industry as a whole, is every single time we've pitched this idea to artists who may or may not really care for NFTs as a whole, they've been extremely excited about it. And then once they go into the studio and start to build stems for this process, the number one kind of comment or opinion we get back from artists is, wow, I've never made music like this before. This is super cool. I feel like I'm in like a playground again, all over again, creating music. And for me, from my side, like I really think it's interesting when you can build new ways of creating music and not just music discovery and collecting music.
Yeah, it's pretty intriguing. One of the folks we're going to hear from later, Lucas from Synthopia, they're building an in-browser DAW, and I'm sure you've heard of the Audioglyphs project, but it's pretty cool that every time you're playing that back, there's some unique element that's being introduced. Chemical X, I chatted with him just a little bit earlier to kind of start this broadcast, and he made a similar point to you made earlier, sort of around music leading the visual art, but the two combining being really important. So I think we have a decent handle on like the music side and how that's generated. How do you marry that with the visual part on SoundMint?
Yeah, it's a great question. So the visuals are very important, although we're slowly figuring out that we need to create a more consistent model with the visuals. But from what we've learned so far and have continued to build is we wanted to create a process where it wasn't just like you play these NFTs on OpenSea and there's no visual element to it all. We wanted to almost be like you could collect it and see the rarity of these NFTs easily and know which ones potentially have more rare stems compared to other ones. So what we've done is we built like metadata trait sheets where we can depict the rarity of certain sounds and also pair that with rare visual layers as well. So it's not just like you're buying an NFT that has a rare visual trait, but it also may have a rare sound as well. So it's almost like you can hear what you see. And that's kind of been the process so far with the visual side as well.
What's the response from the fans been like? I mean, I know the artists are excited about this sort of new way of creating. You know, I'll just be candid. Do you have any feedback where fans feel like, oh, this isn't quite the artist making this, or I feel like, oh, a computer made this, even though my artist had something to do with it? Just curious, like what the kind of reaction to that has been. I personally love it, but just curious.
Yeah, no, it's another great question. It's interesting. Like, I think a lot of the community that bought into the cloud collection didn't really buy it from the music side of it, which is unfortunate. And I think that's partly due to the fact that we marketed to the wrong demographic, which we quickly learned as like a mistake. So going into the Kai and Cruz collection that we just released last week, we wanted to market it to people that would actually care about the music side. And I think coming from that side as well, so much work and effort went into that collection from the music side, from the artist side. I believe like when we were talking to Kyan, it's basically like creating the bones for an album work-wise. It's a lot of effort. So when and we try to do the best of our jobs or best of our ability to narrate that to the community and describe it and explain how much work actually goes into that. So the overall feedback has been extremely positive on the Kyan Cruz collection. And I think it definitely feels more like you're owning a piece of the passion and the emotion that went into that piece of work rather than just like, oh, here's a music NFT collectible, collect it to connect with that single artist. There's tons of these 10 of these NFTs coming out, and there's more opportunities for people to collect them and collect ones that they think connect more to them personally. That's still also a part of the artist.
Got it. No, great stuff. So one thing you mentioned earlier that I just want to go back to with our like last couple minutes here, you mentioned some algorithms, both on the mixing mastering side. I have tried to teach myself some of these things and it seems extremely complicated. How did you guys boil that down? And like, is that something that's very iterative on these algorithms still, or are they pretty well developed? And do you see those maybe even extending in being used outside of the generative NFT world into like just normal music production?
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I know there's like mixing and mastering. I think Lander is one of them, like services that you can just input your song and it like tries to mix and master it based on an algorithm. I'm not going to sit here and say first I'm an engineer because I'm not, so I don't understand the technical process of it. But also second, I don't think it's actually that technical. But just because I know this, our CTO was one of the early people who developed a lot of like tools for Tractor, which is like a music production software thing. So he used a lot of his knowledge from his past expertise on like the engineer side for music, and built like I'm not exaggerating, like 2 days, just built this quick little algorithm that you can send reference files in, like a Drake song, a Rihanna song, whatever the way it sounds. And it tries to mimic that mix and master and applies it to a chain of the exports in real time.
Very cool. Okay. We're running out of time here, but I'm just curious, maybe with 30 seconds or so, since you've had this really interesting view of the music world as you've kind of grown up in it, what do you think are the next big steps for Web3 music specifically?
Another good question. I'd say accessibility, making it more accessible and thinking outside the box of how do we take what works in NFTs and apply it to music. I don't think that is going to work necessarily because of the type of individuals who buy NFTs right now. I think we need to think more outside the box and more flexible in terms of who we're selling these NFTs to and who's collecting them.
Yeah, it seems like already today, I know we're like not even halfway through, but a theme seems to be that music needs to lead the way. And I love that all of our guests have kind of felt that way. We're out of time, but really quickly, how should folks connect with you?
You can DM me on Twitter at Benz Speaks or Benz BENZ Speaks, or you can email me Andre at SoundMint.xyz.
Love it. That's how I got in touch. And I think you guys are hiring as well. So exciting stuff. Thanks for being here.
All right. Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Mitchell.